What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Footballguys College Football Show. Tonight, we're going to be playing one of our favorite games here on the show. It's this or that. And we're going to be diving into, rookie drafts and the rookie picks right now. And it's getting down to the season as a draft combine's coming in the Dynasty season. This is a fun time of what are these draft picks worth to us? And would we trade these guys for veterans out there? And there's a lot of misnomers maybe about this class. We're going to dive into that as well in terms of like the value of these picks and where that is at.
Yeah, like Kevin so eloquently said, we are going to make our picks in a 2-round Superflex draft. And when the pick is made, I will offer a veteran that is equal value to the draft pick value in our Dan Hendry with Football Guys does a fantastic monthly dynasty value chart, and it's very useful. It's if you're somebody that's familiar with trade calculators, it's a similar concept, assigning values to players and then draft picks as well. So I went through before the show and I assigned based on Dan's chart, a veteran player that is the worth of each pick. And so whoever makes the pick in the Superflex mock draft, it will be up to them if they want to choose that rookie or if they want to go with the veteran.
First pick is with age, so Jeff can go first.
Well, okay, I'm going to take Bijan Robinson, and the alternative to Bijan Robinson is Justin Fields. And that is an interesting decision in Superflex. I'm probably still going to take Fields over Robinson at the 101, and especially depending on, both players are towards the beginning of their career on the age range. And so this isn't somewhere that a contender versus rebuild status comes in. It's just the value relative to quarterback and Superflex. And if I'm doing a startup, I'm taking Justin Fields over Bijan Robinson in a startup. And so in this draft, I would take him over Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
I know where Christian's going.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to take Fields. You have to take the quarterback. It's Superflex, and that would just be the smartest way to do it. Now, I say that knowing that Bijan was just the 101 in a Superflex mock draft. I think that's still the right pick, but Justin Fields has obviously shown that he is an elite fantasy performer already, and it's only up from here, in my opinion. So
there's a tier of quarterbacks that you're taking straight up for Bijan, and it probably isn't that Lawrence Fields tier-ish area. So I'm going through my tiers and my articles coming out here pretty soon. I would say it's around there. I think I'd be comfortable with anybody higher than that straight up. And then it gets murky when you start getting a little lower than that.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Christian.
You're up, right? No,
age. Shit. I was trying to lose some years there. Yeah. I'm gonna take Bryce. So I'm gonna take Bryce. He's been my QB1 throughout the process. Bryce is my guy. He's someone that I've watched for a long time. I think that he has the intangibles that you like to see. It looks like almost locked in, like he's going to be the 101. It seems like the Panthers kind of have that dialed in. All the betting, everything is there. So I'll take Bryce to the 102, super flex, quarterback value, everything that's there. And just based on, my breakdown of him and what I've seen from him throughout his career, I think that he's a very safe bet in this draft. I know he's small, but he's been small his whole career. That hasn't stopped him from winning the Heisman and doing a lot of great things.
All right, Kevin, are you going to keep Bryce Young or are you going to take CeeDee Lamb?
No, I'll keep Bryce. I think it's close. It's close. I think I probably value CeeDee as like the 201, 202, but third wide receiver. Bryce, you're looking at that. You could probably get Bryce as a QB2 with a pretty high end floor in that area. And if you're competing wise based on team build. I would take Bryce in that deal. It's close. If you have like a third, if you're pretty comfortable with the quarterback spot, I get it. But no, you lean quarterback and especially with the range of outcomes.
All right. So that leaves Christian up with the 103.
This one's tough. As we are doing this, there's been some bad buzz on CJ Stroud and what that looks like. I'm not certain, but he is still my QB1. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take CJ Stroud here. We've talked about his range of outcomes and how it's probably on the lower end of top 12 finishes. But I do think if you can get a quarterback that's going to give you any type of top 12 finish here at 103, that's already a value. So I'll go ahead and take Stroud.
All right, so the this or that on CJ Stroud is him or Jonathan Taylor.
Oh man, that one's really kind of tough. I think I'd go CJ Stroud still, and the reason Jonathan Taylor is kind of approaching that mid part of his career. 24 years old already. I think, people forget he was kind of an older prospect. So when we're looking at, he's kind of approaching the twilight of the running back, lifespan, whereas I'm getting a 5-year rookie contract of CJ Stroud where he should be given every opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, and I know JJ Zacharyson is somebody that I look up very highly to, and he had a episode of his podcast last summer that I listened to, and that talk about when a player starts to lose value in Dynasty, they never go back to where they were before, especially running backs. Running backs don't go back up to the value that they held before. And I think that it's very clear that Jonathan Taylor is not valued this offseason like he was last offseason. So I think that that's something important to keep in mind as you're having that conversation on you're holding Jonathan Taylor versus the potential to move off to one of these high rookie picks potentially.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, you're on the clock again, right?
Yeah, so you made my pick for me. I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson, and I think that you touched on a lot of what's kind of we're hearing in the draft right now with rumors about where CJ Stroud's going to end up, and it does seem that Richardson has solidified himself a little bit through the process on, he might be that second quarterback off the board. I think we're all on the same page that Bryce Young is going to be the 101 in the actual NFL draft, and so Richardson is that wild card. And the this or that on Richardson is Richardson or Deshaun Watson. And that's an interesting one where I probably still go with Watson at this valuation. But, man, that is a sliding doors moment because that could swing really hard in Richardson's direction for the future, for the moving forward. But I think if you're able to move the 104 and you're able to grab Deshaun Watson, that's still a move that I do. I think right now that's interesting because I think Watson, Kyler Murray, I think Lamar Jackson, if you're in Superflex right now and you don't have an elite quarterback or a second elite quarterback, I think you have a rare opportunity right now. It's a little bit of a dice roll that these guys are going to recover value, but you can look at a Watson or a Kyler Murray and grab the injury discount, or Lamar Jackson. Everybody thinks he's bad now for some reason, or even Trey Lance. If you want to get risky and roll the dice there and go with Lance, those are all moves that potentially are open right now that are rare opportunities to step into young-ish quarterbacks that have that elite upside, and especially in Superflex, it does seem like the market's movable on those guys. And so, again, if you don't have that position solidified, I would be looking around your league and starting to make a couple of those offers, and I would have been making those offers already, but seeing what's available and are you able to move on to something else?
The one thing I want to point out here, now I agree with you 100% about the Watson over Richardson here. There's a 7-year age gap there. And I know like there is, I don't want to be an ageist because I do think that obviously with quarterback, you have a longer window to succeed, especially with Watson's situation and how he's going to be walking into his first full offseason as a Cleveland Brown. But I do think that that's something that you have to consider there is like, am I actually giving up 7 years by making that deal? Assuming that Richardson's able to stay in the league for as long as maybe Deshaun Watson does. Now, I think that's the question you have to ask yourself, though, is do you believe that that's going to happen and that Richardson will be one of those elite types of guys? And that's, I would agree that it's close, but I would also lean Watson there.
But it's really a bet on safety. But it's interesting because it's a bet on safety on knowing what Watson is. But Watson might not be what Watson was. And especially in that Cleveland offense, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. There's been rumors. They added Elijah Moore, obviously. There's been rumors about what that offense will look like. Will they start to utilize more multiple wide receiver sets? Are they going to stay in heavy formations and rely on the run game? Are they going to lean into Watson a little bit more? And so it is risky, but it's in your mind, you think you're making the safe play on Watson, but you might be making the riskier play.
True.
Yeah, I mean, pretty appropriate values for both those guys. I'm going to go JSN, so I'll just take JSN here. I think, he's been pretty much my wide receiver one in this entire process throughout the offseason. And I think this is pretty much where you've been seeing a lot of rookie drafts go with this. But I will say around this value is where you start getting some questionable, like, all right, who am I going to take here? Because I think there's some questions about maybe his landing spot, where he goes. And then there are some veterans getting shipped for that 105, 106 range that you might really want.
All right. So the question here, Kevin, is Jaxon Smith-Njigba or Drake London?
I'll take Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and that's probably because I was lower on London coming out than some of the other guys in terms of the values. I think it's close. I think JSN, I think they're actually right behind each other in my combined rankings that I have right now. So I think it's literally close. If JSN gets a really good landing spot, I think that vaults him ahead of London, and so you're happy with that. Until the Falcons get a quarterback, I just don't know what we can really do with the with London, Pitts, those guys in that offense. So I think I still lean JSN just because I've ranked JSN higher than London throughout the process. And that's kind of where I'm at with those guys.
I think that's fair. I think it's close. I have a question for both of you. Are you guys ranking Jaxon Smith-Njigba as a top 12 dynasty wide receiver right now?
He's not quite there yet. He's close. He's very, very close. He's right on the fringe. But, I think that the question, seeing landing spot, seeing capital, if he is that wide receiver number one in this class, if he is a top 10 asset, like we saw the Ohio State guys last year go off, or the way that we've seen these top end rookie wide receivers valued, I think you shove him right there right away. If he kind of slips a little bit late, but again, and if you've followed the show, like, talk a lot about the double-edged sword on wide receivers, elements of the passing game, that if they're not drafted very early, then they're actually stepping into better situations. And so it's one of those that you get your cake and eat it too. Either way, you're either going to be getting a better quarterback, better passing offense, or that high, very, very high draft capital. So, I think that you make a good point, and I probably need to reevaluate my ranks and anyways, and probably put him there.
I have him at 14. So he's at 14 for me. So he's very close.
Me too. I have him there, but I was kind of just looking at my rankings as we were talking here, and I can make a case to put him over 5 guys that I have ahead of him and put him into the top 10. I think, this next week, the landing spot is going to matter. And that's, I can't believe we're almost there. So,
all right, where are you going? 106.
I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'm someone that likes to draft running backs. I think especially with the current state of the running back position in the NFL, when you get a guy that can offer as much as he can in the passing game while also being a very refined runner, a guy that can work between the tackles, a guy that can take a decent enough workload to be a high value fantasy performer, I think you got to lean on that and the safety of that over the other guy that I considered here. And this is kind of a little bit different from the last time we did this, and Will Levis. Because of all the buzz that we're getting that this guy is going to be drafted, top 15 at the very least, I think you have to consider Levis in Superflex formats. But right now I'm going to go ahead and take Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right, so you keeping Jahmyr Gibbs, or are you going to take Tua Tagovailoa?
I'm going to, timely. I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs for the sheer fact that Tua had to learn how to fall this offseason, and I hope that he learned well. That's all I'll say on that.
He could have just learned from me at my child's playground. Like, I know how to fall pretty well. Tua is an interesting case study because I think he falls in tier 5. So I think he falls with all the rookie quarterbacks, like in that weird, question marks, and then like Trey Lance. Like, I feel like he's in that tier. So I think Gibbs is probably safer. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been a little bit more aggressive on Tua this offseason based upon the valuations. And it's one that there's a real cliff when it comes to quarterbacks and Superflex right now. And I think that over the last handful of years, the late round quarterback strategy, that type of thing that you felt like there was depth all the way through. And then it's just something that we've seen dramatically shift I think from where we felt last year to this point now, like once you get past Tua, then you're really looking at what Daniel Jones, and then what are you looking at after that? And it's even some of these veteran guys that you felt good about before, giving you 3, 4, 5 years. It's like Matthew Stafford. Do you think you're getting 3 years out of Matthew Stafford at this point? Aaron Rodgers, how many more years is Aaron Rodgers going to play? And so that it's just created a real cliff, I think, when it comes to quarterback values. And so I've played Tua a little bit more aggressively than I think other people have, but I know that there's certainly risk involved in that.
If I can keep Gibbs and then come back around on a turn, if I'm in a startup, for example, and I can get a Trey Lance or Anthony Richardson, I'd rather keep that running back that I feel is pretty safe and maybe get an elite performer on the turn. I guess would be my strategy if we're talking strategy here.
Do you guys think Gibbs is going to be a first-round running back?
No. I think he's going to be a top 50 pick.
Yeah. If he does, he'd sneak in like late first. Like maybe a team likes him and they come up. I don't know. He's tough Bengals. One. I think there's a realistic scenario where Gibbs is the third running back taken and Charbonnet is the second running back taken. I think that's a realistic scenario.
What do you think that does to his valuation? I guess we've talked throughout the process that in my mind, Gibbs is a player that I want to feel very comfortable that he's going to have a passing down role. And so that kind of lingers out there. I think
he has to have a passing down role because especially with just the way that in PPR where you're going to value him, like, because I think Charbonnet could come in and be a 3-down guy, like, and if you don't want to lose on that volume just to Gibbs, who gets 3-4 targets a game, and now you're like, hey, wait a minute, I thought this kid was going to get 10, have that Kamara like role and stuff. So I think it's a good point. I think that you have to make sure that he finds himself in a spot where he's going to be utilized in that way, because we've seen this before with running backs. They don't go utilized that way. Like we make fun of, like you guys make fun of me with Swift, but Swift has the talent. He doesn't get utilized, and like Gibbs could fall in that same. Hey, he's got this area. He has this elite skill, but they're not using him. And we've seen teams ruin guys like this before. So I think that's something that you have to look at with that draft, where he goes in that late first or early second. And if Charbonnet is going to get the volume, I saw Charbonnet go ahead of Gibbs in a recent draft that we did. And I think that's realistically where we're at right now in terms of the value.
Yeah. And I think there's some lessons to be, I was just going to say real quick, I think there's some lessons from James Cook last year to be applied to Jahmyr Gibbs, because you saw Cook's skill set. You saw kind of aggressive draft capital on him to Buffalo. And, I think I was somebody that I see that pick and I think they're going to use the running back more in the passing game because that's his skill set. And then they didn't. And so I think that sometimes we assign the abilities of players and assume that the scheme's going to fit that. And, rational coaching doesn't always follow that.
So I have a mock draft that is going to come out next week. I have Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Bucks at pick 50, and I have Zach Charbonnet going to the Bengals at pick 60. Which would you prefer in those two scenarios?
I would rather have Charbonnet. And actually, it's really funny because not knowing that, we are doing a Football Guys mock draft, and make sure to check it out on Monday. And I have Gibbs. I took Gibbs in the first round to the Bucks. So that's coming fun. Out to spoil a little bit. But but that kind of elevates the range on Gibbs there, where, he could be. And that's kind of speaks to the valuation that you see anyways, because there are so many guys that fall into that. They could go 20th or they could go 50th. And so he's definitely in that range. All right. So I am going to go with Will Levis. And I think now Christian flirted with that. The choice is Will Levis or Tony Pollard in Superflex. I'm going to take Levis over Pollard. It's just, way that I want to build rosters, valuation on quarterback and Superflex. And I think that what's going on with Will Levis in the fantasy community at large is kind of mind-boggling, because it seems like so many people have just convinced themselves that he's going to be a bust. And so I've seen him. I saw somebody today said that he went after Zay Flowers in a draft, that he's getting faded to the 10 or 11th pick. And that, to me, that's just wild. That the idea that you would take some of these more, especially at this point where you're not even sure if these wide receivers are going to get first round draft capital. You're not even sure what landing spot they're going to have. And the idea that you're going to take a quarterback, not going to take a quarterback that most likely would go top 10 in the NFL draft over a random, Zay Flowers is a nice little skill set, but I don't know that he's going to be that elite fantasy producer versus what you can get is just a ceiling bet. At the same time, it's a floor bet. It's just wild to me because Levis has that skill set that as much as people are off on him, if he goes to the Colts at 4 and you see that one training camp highlight where he throws a 65-yard pass to Alec Pierce in practice, everybody's going to be in on it. And so it's just crazy to me how many people have convinced themselves that this guy surely is a bust and are acting that way in leagues and putting that valuation on him instead of just, I don't know. It's just in many ways in Superflex, it's even a safer bet. And it's crazy to me.
Yeah, I hear you. What's your value here?
It was Tony Pollard, and
he said it quick. It was Tony Pollard.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, it was an easy decision in my mind. So.
Yeah. So I want to ask another question though. So in a dynasty format, are you taking Levis as like a mid-tier QB2 then? And I guess, are you valuing Pollard as a back-end RB2? Because that's where I do wonder. You're kind of on the tipping point for Pollard too, like we just talked about with Jonathan Taylor. I also think Dallas is adding a running back, so I think that impacts it a little bit. But I guess, what is the value of like a mid-tier QB2 versus maybe a higher tier RB2 at this point?
Well, have you met me, Christian? Because
I know you hate running backs.
I hate running backs. Running backs are a resource that can be easily replaced. But I do think that Pollard's an interesting case because from what I'm seeing in Underdog and other areas, I think we all assume the Cowboys will draft a meaningful running back. But if they don't, if they take somebody a day 3 pick to kind of complement, Pollard is a top 5 like fantasy running back this year. I mean, even giving top 5 might be even a little bit cautious on that. He might be flirting with being a top 3 value. And so what you're seeing the valuation in redraft, if you're already doing underdog leagues, to me, he's a slam pick where he's landing because I got him, I think in the 4th or 5th round when I did one the other night in the Superflex drafts. But I think that he's a guy that he's going to go in the middle to early first round when we get around to drafts. I think that depending on who they add in the draft, now certainly they could go and make Kevin very angry on draft night and add Bijan Robinson and just completely nuke the heck out of it. But again, this is a guy that if they don't add a meaningful complement or maybe roll the dice on kind of a power complement later, I mean, Pollard's valuation is low potentially.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go with Jordan. Oh, do you have a question for me?
I was gonna say, would you actually hate Bijan for Dallas?
No, not really.
Hey, are you in?
I mean, if you're gonna if you're gonna go all in on the offensive side and you want a guy like Bijan and you're gonna add him, you have him in Pollard for a year. Pollard walks, and you get to keep Bijan in a 4-year deal where you're gonna be able to franchise him for $12 million maybe in 4 years. I get it. Like I don't think it. I get it. Like I'm not gonna hate rooting for Bijan Robinson on my team, just like I rooted for Zeke at a cheaper cost and not the draft capital that he got. Right. So like I'm okay with it. I know how Dallas. If he's there, I'd be very surprised we don't pick him. But I do know that Dallas is very, very set. When you're looking at I don't know why people are mocking a tight end to Dallas. Like that's not happening at 26. It's just not happening. No. I don't think. And that's coming from a Dallas fan, but also just from, I don't know, I guess a fake analyst. Like I just don't see them coming at that pick. Like I just don't see it. I think if they do that, I think that I think you look good. I think it would be a good addition. I think it's a value pick though. But I guess at the end of there's a clear tier break around 22 or 23 based on like just the value of players. And if Bijan's there, he's clearly in the top tier. That's I think where you have to kind of use it and just go with that as a roster. Like if you're a GM of Dallas or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I derailed. It's your pick.
Oh, you're fine. I'll take Jordan Addison. I'll just take Addison here. Probably should take Charbonnet, but I hate running backs as well. But I'll take Jordan Addison here. USC. If he gets first round draft capital, he goes somewhere fun in the 20s. Like I'm okay taking Addison, and I think I don't know. There's weird things going on right now in terms of like the value of these players. Like, and I think someone said it very well this week. I've been taking some time off of social media, but I did see this like. They talked about this class being lower than there used to be. And I don't think so. Like when you're looking at these, like if you look at the board right now, 102 to 108, based on the drafts last year, they'd probably be valued higher than what everybody except for Bryce and Garrett, maybe. But remember, Garrett was getting unvalued last year too. Drake was out there. Like realistically, like with the talent there, like these guys this is a way better class than last year. And I think that you have to understand that looking at just from the value perspective. Addison being here, I'm okay with taking Addison here. I think if you can be a wide receiver 2 at this level at the 108, and maybe, he comes in, he won the Blitnikoff 2 years ago. He was a legitimate kid out there. Like there's still value to be had.
All right. Yeah. And I think that what you're referencing, I saw Jacob Sanderson make that point, and Jacob's a very good analyst. And he said that between Bijan would go number 1 last year, and then between the second pick and the 6th pick in most drafts, like that would go number 2 last year. And then these guys in the 7 to 10 area are better than what you get in most years in that area. And so for as much hype or lack of hype has ended up on this class, and I do think it's important to add context to it, because I see it all the time on, well, everybody just does this every year and says the next class is more valuable, and 23 was supposed to be the class. People need to understand that, Kayshon Boutte was a top number 1 wide receiver last year, and he has completely fallen off. No quarterback came out of nowhere to kind of elevate and round out this class. There really wasn't that second or third running back that stepped forward, and it was just one of those that you didn't get the additional guys to step in. You had a fall off with Boutte, and so it just didn't end up where we thought it was going to. That doesn't mean it's a bad class, and it's just people need to understand nuance and understand and exist in these areas where the evaluation can be disappointing from where it was, but not bad. And so it's just, it's all over that. But the choice between Jordan Addison and Deebo Samuel for you.
I'll take Jordan Addison. I'll take the shot in the younger wide receiver. Deebo, there's so much question marks with that offense. What that even going to look like next year? I'll take Addison and just hope that he lands somewhere where he can be the wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I get that. Also, to your point, Jeff, I feel like Zay Flowers walked right into Kayshon's spot in drafts, and no one really talks about that. Like Zay Flowers wasn't talked about as highly last year.
Whoa!
All right.
Whoa! There was someone on this show that talked about Zay.
Anyone except for Kevin. Okay, I'm here. I'm gonna take Quentin Johnston. I mean, what are we doing with this kid? I'm not entirely certain. This is the overanalyzing stuff. His case reminds me very much so of Rashad Bateman's. And unfortunately, Rashad Bateman has been hurt for 2 years. But when he's been on the field, we've seen some of those electric plays. We kind of assume that he is Baltimore's wide receiver 1. He looks healthy. There was a video that came out yesterday. I feel like this is the same type of thing where maybe he's falling back further into the draft, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe he's going to end up on Minnesota with a dynamic passing offense, or maybe he's going to fall to maybe Jeff's Bills take him. There are a lot of good situations that I think he could go to. And even if he falls to round 2, I'll still take that size speed combo here at 109.
Yeah, and I think that Johnston's a case of he's not the player that when you see on paper that you expect him to be, and you expect him to be that big receiver that's out muscling guys. And I know it's been banded about his horrible contested catch rate. He's not that type of player. He's a player that you can give the ball and allow him to create with the ball in his hands, or he can beat you vertically. And that there's so much value in that in the current NFL that it's he's another guy that falls in that Will Levis category that everybody's just decided that he's a bust out of thin air for some reason, and it baffles me, blows my mind. But the question on his valuation would be Quentin Johnston or Jared Goff.
Johnston. That was probably too quick. Jared Goff has a little bit of value, and I think we're walking into this draft assuming that the Lions don't go quarterback. I wouldn't rule that out, especially if one starts to fall and they're sitting there at 18. I don't think Jared Goff's job is entirely secure past maybe 2023, despite them liking him. But even in Superflex, I will take that upside shot on Quentin Johnston because he does have that top 12 ceiling that we hope he hits.
Yeah, and the Lions are an interesting case because you don't know how many swings they're going to get at it, because if they progress the way that they should with all the young talent that they have there, and if Jared Goff is competent to the level that he was last year, are they going to be in position to draft a quarterback next year? Because that Matthew Stafford bonus trade compensation expires this year. And so I think they have to have those real conversations inside the building but it's important to note for Dynasty too, that if they decide Goff's our guy, then they decide Goff's our guy. And, that offense has got so much upside into it that if they don't take the quarterback this year, when are they going to get the chance to take the quarterback? And, you talk about grabbing Hendon Hooker late or the second round. Jared Goff's not that much older than Hendon Hooker. And so it's Jared Goff, I think, is younger than people even realize, because I feel like he's been in our lives for that long. But again, this guy is not even 30.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Zach Charbonnet, I think, is the easy pick here. I'd be, and it really falls off, I think, after this pick, once you get Charbonnet. And so if this is something that we talk about tiers, and maybe somebody will emerge with a great landing spot, one of these wide receivers, or maybe one of these running backs ends up with a great offensive landing spot that expands this tier a little bit. But, if I'm sitting in the early second and I have somebody that I'm able to make a little bit of a mini jump here to get into the 110, that's a move that I'm making right now, depending on what the evaluation is and what your league makes asking for. But this is an interesting case because it's Zach Charbonnet or Javonte Williams. And it's interesting that I ended up with this one because I was in position a couple months ago where I did trade the 110 for Javonte Williams. And I feel like I'm regretting that now. I'd rather would hold that 110 than to have Javonte Williams, just because I have major concerns on that knee recovery and him coming back and being our Cecil Lammey is very plugged into the Broncos. And he mentioned that there's concern on Javonte Williams was never a plus athlete. And if a guy that was just athletic enough and then has the bad injury, he's no longer just athletic enough. And so that's the concern there. Whereas Charbonnet, you're resetting the clock. You're getting a younger player. You're getting a healthy player. And so I think that's almost a no-brainer to me at this point.
You mentioned resetting the clock on the contract. Yes, but they're the same age. I think that's something too. Javonte was a young prospect. And in terms of like what the athleticism looks like, Javonte, I believe, Javonte had a higher relative athletic score than Charbonnet. I do get the point, though, that if he doesn't return to form, obviously we would adjust that relative athletic score down. But I mean, that's just betting on a good recovery, I guess. I'd personally go Javonte there. I know Kevin likes Javonte too.
No, I wouldn't take Javonte there. No. I'm on I'll take Charbonnet.
You're on Charbonnet?
Okay. I'm out on Javonte right now. I don't think he's worth because I think he's worth a 202 week 4 or a 204 week 4. Like that knee scares me. Like, and I wasn't high on Javonte coming now. Like I was high, but I wasn't like as high as some people were. So like that, that just comes down to a value play to me right now. I'll take Charbonnet right now because if you wanted to, like, let's say, I mean, I bet you Charbonnet is worth much more than Javonte come week 4 or 5, like much more if he's healthy and he finds his role. So like that's where I'd be at with. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room with Javonte Williams on my roster. I'll let someone else try to be smart. That's how I look at Javonte.
That's fair. Sorry for assuming.
It's okay. We do
that. All right, you're on the clock, man.
Yeah, this is this tight end premium or no?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take Michael Mayer. I'll take. Oh, it does. Look at that. Yeah, I'm gonna take Mayer, and the reason why, even though Jeff was kind of shitting on Mayer today on a show I was watching, I'll take him here because I think he has a safe floor. I think that. I could have taken Flowers and Downs, and some people are really high on Flowers and Downs, and I like that. But if I'm looking at this, it's tight end premium. I need, Mayer could be a top 8 guy after this year. You're looking at value wise. I'm okay with Mayer anywhere from 111 to 205. Like if you're going to take him at 205, great. If you're going to take him at wherever, like that's fine. But I'm okay. I'm comfortable at 111 to taking a shot on him based on my roster and where it's at.
All right. So are you going to take Michael Mayer or are you going to take Hollywood Brown?
That's a really tough one because Brown for me right now with the quarterback situation, and no one's buying Brown. His value is very low right now. Tight end premium, I'll take Michael Mayer. I can find Marquise Brown in a lot of places. Michael Mayer is someone I probably can't find a lot of places, so I'll leave Mayer.
Okay. Yeah. I traded the 114 for Brown in a league, so it was a 16-team league, and it was one of those that I wanted a little bit more immediate, safer bet on the 114 just because being in a 16-team league, there was a little bit more premium on having legitimate starting pieces in your roster, and certainly value Brown as a starting piece in that type of league. So, but again, that's in this range. So,
do you want to hear a dirty trade I got offered for Marquise Brown? Someone offered me the 210 and freaking Justin Ross for Marquise Brown, by the way. So,
thank you. There's like a handful of people that have Justin Ross on their roster, so you could probably figure out.
Apparently, Justin Ross is the wide receiver 1 according to fantasy industry. No, I that was a shame on you out there who asked me for that trade. Just want to shame. All right, okay, go ahead.
So I'm really struggling here. I was kind of hoping you guys would keep talking. So I'll say who I'm between, because you just mentioned I don't want to be the smartest person in the room with Javonte or act like I'm the smartest person in the room. I also don't want to act like I'm a better evaluator than the NFL. Hendon Hooker is getting first round hype. And while I don't think that he is a high value fantasy asset, I don't make that choice. I think you have to consider him here, but I'm not going in that direction. I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid because right now I'm looking at guys. Can I get a guy that can be top 12 at his position at this point in the draft? I think the only player I can confidently say I believe that is the upside. I think it's Dalton Kincaid here, because when we talk about Mayer and Kincaid in the same tier, as soon as Mayer comes off the board, I am cool taking Kincaid, and honestly vice versa if we see that flip when real drafts come around.
All right. So would you rather have Dalton Kincaid or Cam Akers?
Dalton Kincaid. I'm not a big Cam Akers guy, though. I'm like how you guys are with Javonte. That's me with Cam Akers, because I don't believe that little flash towards the end of last year fully.
So now some of these are set up nice for whoever got him, and some of them are pretty slam dunk for the person that got him. And I knew Cam Akers is the guy that you were not in on, but again, we didn't know the order before the draft. So, it is what it is. At the 201, I am going to take, I think I'm going to take Zay Flowers here.
Okay.
I think it's one that I do still feel pretty good that he's going to get first round draft capital, and him being a first round pick, especially a later first round pick, I like the offense that would end up in. Some of the other options, you guys need to, we'll get there, I guess, but I'm a little bit nervous on Josh Downs, to be honest with you, on what's not getting top 30 visits, those types of things. And I know those are for a ton of different reasons, but I'll take Zay Flowers here. And the question would be Zay Flowers or Derek Carr. And I think that, again, this goes back. If you're a team that earned the 201, I'm definitely going to take Flowers over Derek Carr, just because If you earned that 201, you don't need to have Derek Carr on your roster. But, if you're a team that you ended up trading into this, or if you're a team that maybe you fell back a little bit and did the opposite of what I told people to do and decided to tear down, you're looking at needing a replacement to step in. I mean, Carr's in this range, but no, I'd still take Flowers.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good call.
I'm taking Tank Bigsby here. I hope I sniped Christian.
You sure
I'm
did.
taking Tank. I'm standing behind Tank in the second round. There's a lot of people out there talking bad about Tank right now, but in our rookie guide, when we talked about him, he's a 3-down kid. He can do everything. I didn't say he can do everything well, but he can do everything. And I think he's going to get the draft capital that we like. I think he can get in that third round. If he gets in that third round, he's an early second smash for me. Because I think that he's going to fit an NFL prototype. He's that guy's going to bounce in the league for a long time. You're like, oh, Tank's still in the league scoring touchdowns. And I think that could be him if he gets that draft capital that we like. There's a lot of guys in these running back tier. There's running back tier after Charbonnet because everybody assumes these 3 guys are going to get there. After that, it's really coming down draft capital. And then, okay, where's the tier at with that? And then you're going to have the guys like we know, maybe Zach Evans, maybe Tucker, maybe some of these other guys that are going to go 4th, 5th, and 6th round. Okay, where's that draft capital? Who's going to be the tier for me? But I think Bigsby, if he sneaks in there, I'm smashing it at 202.
All right. Would you rather have Tank Bigsby or Rashad White?
Tank Bigsby. I'm not a Rashad guy. I think Rashad could get replaced. You guys have been talking about mocking to Tampa Bay, split work, all those things. Rashad is very good, I guess, at one thing. I guess pass catching. I don't necessarily know if he showed that last year. I think he did okay. Where Tank is more. I think Tank's a more well-rounded back. I think he's more. Then you want that on your roster because I think that offers more chance for you to earn fantasy points.
Yeah. Yep. All right, I'm going to take Hendon Hooker for a lot of the reasons I just talked about. This kid's going in the top 50, whether that's smart or not. I know he's an older prospect. I know if you've watched his film, you understand that like a lot of the things were half-field reads, and quarterback evaluation is very difficult. There have been talks about his leadership skills and things like that. There are a few mocks out there that have Hendon Hooker going before Will Levis with 5 quarterbacks in the first round. I think if that happens, we're going to see this value jump even higher. Right now at 203, I think that's kind of a smash, even if I'm not a Hendon Hooker believer.
All right. So would you rather have Hendon Hooker or Kadarius Toney?
Oh, Hendon Hooker. I want none of Kadarius Toney ever. I understand that there's a lot of upside there, but Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, but when we were at the Charbonnet pick, I talked about tiers, and I think Hooker is a tier expander where if he is that first-round quarterback, then I think you start to push maybe that tier to 11, and I think that teams will start to take him probably the 11th or 12th pick in the first round just because the value assigned to quarterback and Superflex and the questions around some of the other prospects that are sitting there.
You're on the clock.
All right, Jeff, you're up.
Jeff.
Oh, man. So I am going to take Tyjae Spears. And
I like that.
My choice is Tyjae Spears or Tyler Algier. And this is a difficult choice for me because lately I've been on kind of banging the table a little bit for Tyler Algier just because I think that there's been some fake, false valuation deflation that has been going on with Tyler Algier because I understand that the Falcons are the betting favorite for Bijan Robinson, and maybe they do take Bijan Robinson, but we could live in a world where Tyler Algier is threatening for the NFL rushing title because if they don't expend high draft capital on a running back, and Tyler Algier looked very good the second half of last year, towards the end of last year, hitting 1,000 yards his rookie season. And we know that offense, assuming they don't do something crazy and draft a rookie quarterback and dramatically change the way that they're going to run the offense, we know they're going to run the ball. But Spears probably stepping into that wild card on I think the valuation where he is getting put with the teams that are looking at him. You're kind of rolling the dice and hoping that you're in a little bit better offense potentially than that Falcons. And the biggest differentiator between the two is probably passing down role. I would expect Spears to have passing work. And so if we're in a PPR format, I'm going to go with the guy that is going to catch passes, and that's not going to be Tyler Algier. I'll keep Tyjae Spears.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'd do something similar. Yeah.
All right. Let's we got to roll through this a little quicker. I'm going to go Josh Downs, 205. I'll take him here. I'm cool with Downs being at the 205.
All right, Josh, this is fun. Josh Downs or Sam Howell, North Carolina. Almost was Christian.
Is it Superflex makes this tougher because Josh Downs could turn into Diami Brown, and that's another North Carolina Tar Heel. I'm gonna go Josh Downs. I'll just take Downs though, because you probably get more for Howell though. But for me personally, I'm taking Josh Downs.
Yeah, that's an interesting value study, I guess, because we talked about Javonte and week 4, how his value is going to be different. Sam Howell, if he starts the first 4 weeks and he does well, there are going to be people that are bought into him being the starter long-term for the Commanders. So, okay, I'm going to take Zach Evans here. I've been one that I'm a little nervous about Zach Evans and where he gets drafted, but I've also been one from the beginning that said, if he gets drafted in the 4th or 5th round, I'm still going to be in on this kid because the talent is there and we kind of understand why he fell in the draft. If the talent's there and there's an opportunity there, I think you're looking at a guy that does have potential top 12 upside that you can get here in the middle of the 2nd round. I'll take that every time.
You're going to take Zach Evans or Antonio Gibson?
They are back-to-back in my rankings. That is the worst question you've asked me ever. I'm gonna take Antonio Gibson still. I know people are out on Antonio Gibson, but I do think he's an efficient back. I think he's a good pass catcher, and I think there's a world in which we have a little bit of a Miles Sanders situation where maybe he leaves Washington and Miles Sanders has probably more value for the Panthers this year, which is a conversation for another day and another show. But he could walk into a value boost when he gets elsewhere. So I'll take Gibson.
Yeah, Gibson's one of my favorite buys right now, and that really comes down to if the Commanders don't add a meaningful back. Brian Robinson had no passing role last year whatsoever, and we saw Eric Bieniemy coming over. We saw the usage of Jerick McKinnon in that Chiefs offense. If Sam Howell's the quarterback, having a young quarterback, Antonio Gibson could be among the league leaders in running back targets, and I think that he's just completely forgotten about and completely tossed out, and he's still pretty young. So he's a guy that he can really turn around and pay off for you in PPR formats. I'm going to take Devon Achane, and my question is Devon Achane or Deontay Johnson. And in that, if I can get Deontay Johnson for a late 2nd round pick, that's a move that I'm going to make all day, every day. I still believe in the talent of Deontay Johnson. I think that there's just today, I think it's Andrew Filipino, maybe. He's a Steelers beat writer. He said that there was starting to be some rumblings around the team. And this is something that, to give Christian credit, Christian was on this months ago, that with the addition of Allen Robinson, there's some rumblings around the Steelers about maybe Deontay Johnson being potentially moved next week during the draft and maybe potentially looking to reset. Maybe Jordan Addison would be a player that would be in play for the Steelers and they could flip Deontay Johnson. But I'm just rolling the dice on the talent. I still believe in Deontay Johnson. I think he's a volume earner. And despite not scoring a touchdown last year, I think he's still a player that I would rather have than a late 2nd round pick.
Yeah, that's the first pick you've sniped me on, so you can take that however you like. I'm going to take Jalin Hyatt here at the 208. I'll take Hyatt because I know no one else is going to. But if he gets draft cap in the first 2 rounds at the 208, I'm okay with that. Honestly, like Musgrave's probably up there for me tied in from Morgan State. I think it's a little early to take him. Some of these running backs, once draft capital figures out, we'll probably have some running backs in this area. But I'll take the shot at Jalin Hyatt.
All right, so you'd rather have Jalin Hyatt or Courtland Sutton?
Jalin Hyatt. I don't. Sutton has just disappeared, and I don't know what it is. If it was the offense or whatever the case may be, but I don't. Again, he kind of falls in that Javonte category for me. A guy that I like, maybe you take a shot on him, but it's not someone that I want to have on my roster because just all the potential outcomes. And, to be fair, Tim Patrick coming back, and I know they love him. And I know that, Judy could take that next step too. Then you have, when you're looking at Samadre P. Ryan, right? That's how you say, I always mess up the name. Like that, there's more targets there. Dolchich could take another step. And then where's the targets going to come? If Hyatt finds himself where he's a wide receiver too, I'll take that on that roster.
Yeah, I think Sutton's a guy that was never quite as good as people believed he was, but that's my personal take on it. But I don't blame you.
Yeah, I think the ACL injury there also. Maybe there's something going on in Denver. What is going on?
He just needs
in Denver?
Drew Lock.
Brian Windhorst.
He just needs our guy Drew Lock, Christian.
True.
That's what he needs.
That's true. Also, can't wait for the Denver fans to come for you, Kevin. This is a rough run for Broncos players here.
I know. Yeah, I know.
I'm going to take Marvin Mims here. Just a guy that I think has been
wildly. Oh, shit. Marvin Mims is still on the clock. Okay, I would have taken Marvin Mims. So I want everybody to know I screwed that up. But Christian got it. That's what happens.
Yeah. Hey, that's what happens in your real draft. Make sure you pay attention. Marvin Mims, guy that's been underrated for a long, long time, that I think the hype in fantasy circles has gotten there. I'm not certain that the NFL loves this kid. I think he's raw, but I also think that he's productive, and I think he's going to get day 2 capital. So I think we're looking at a good value here at the back of the second.
Yeah, you answered my first question there because I do believe that there's a disconnect. There seems to be a pretty strong fantasy hive around Marvin Mims, but it doesn't seem like the NFL draft hive is as strong because he's not the player that you think he would be. Just he's another guy that you look at him, what you would expect to see. He's a vertical threat, and he needs to add a lot more underneath and intermediate elements to his game to really pay off in fantasy, I think. But would you rather have Marvin Mims or Jamal Williams?
Marvin Mims. I just don't. Jamal is very much so at the twilight, and he scored 8,000 touchdowns last year, which helped his value. And I don't think the Saints are scoring 8,000 touchdowns this year.
All right.
Don't quote me on the stats.
Roughly. All right.
Yeah, you covered it.
I am gonna go with Kendre Miller with my pick. And my choice is Kendre Miller or Juju Smith-Schuster. And I would take Miller, and it's not an easy choice, I don't think, just because, I don't know. I think that Juju Smith-Schuster maybe has a chance in New England to return some value. I have concerns about Juju Smith-Schuster's health ever really returning. And it's a player that, you had a sell opportunity last year when he was with the Chiefs, and especially early in the year when he looked pretty strong, but we saw him tail off. And I just think the health will always be a question. Whereas Miller, you're stepping into unknown upside. You're stepping into a player that a lot of people are very high on. And if he catches capital, if he catches the right landing spot, he's a player that really could just take off. And so I would certainly rather roll the dice than step into a Mac Jones led offense.
Fair enough. That's all you needed to say. Mac Jones. Bang.
All right. 211. I'm going to take Izzy Abanikanda. I like this kid. I think that he could be a good runner. I think he tested well, but back half the second, I'll take a shot on his intangibles, and I'll take a shot on his testing and his ability. I think he's a little stiff. So that Izzy's a little stiff in certain areas, and I do think his vision is questionable, but he gets into his own running blocking scheme. I think if he can find that, I think there's schemes out there that really fit Izzy. And if he can land in that, I'm happy to take him here.
I think we all probably could have broken 5.0 if we had tested on that day at Pittsburgh. It seems like when everything's coming out, but would you rather have Izzy Abanikanda or Sky Moore?
Oh man, that's a tough one for me. No, but it's actually I've been sneakily stacking some Sky Moore at some of my teams, to be honest. I actually kind of I'm taking Sky Moore in that one, actually. I can't believe I actually just said that because I was like the biggest Sky Moore hater last year. No, Sky Moore's sneaky right now. Sky Moore is a sneaky dynasty ad. He is very sneaky because he's going late, 12th, 13th, 14th round. You can grab him, maybe the second target getter on that roster. Like, give me Sky.
Yeah. Yep. I'm proud of you. I'm gonna do something different here. It wouldn't be a mock draft without people yelling at me specifically. I'm gonna take Sam LaPorta as the final pick in this 2-round mock draft. And the reason I'm going to take Sam LaPorta is the hype is definitely there on the NFL side for Sam LaPorta to be one of the top 5 tight ends taken. I know Luke Musgrave's still on the board, but I think Sam LaPorta has more ability to stay on the field in terms of blocking and in terms of scheme fits. I think that he can be one of those guys that lines up in line and bumps out to the slot. I like Sam LaPorta, and I know this isn't a consensus pick with some of the other guys there, but you know what? It was my pick, so.
No, I do have a good one teed up for you, though, because Sam LaPorta or Rashad Penny.
Oh, no. I have to still stick with LaPorta. I think Rashad Penny hitting and remaining. I think he can hit for a year, but hitting and remaining and staying healthy, it's a long shot despite my belief in Rashad Penny as a runner and his fit in the Eagles system. LaPorta, I mean, there are 5 tight ends in this class that I believe have top 12 upside, and LaPorta has one of the better profiles to eventually make that happen. So I'll take LaPorta, but I'm not happy about that question either, Jeff.
All right, so we're done drafting, but I do see a handful of guys on the board that get talked about quite often, and so I'm a little bit curious on so a guy like Kayshon Boutte or a guy like Cedric Tillman or Sean Tucker, like where do those need to? Those are names that get talked about, and I know that you guys are lower on them, and we've certainly seen problems with Boutte. Where do those guys have to get drafted to enter this mix as being a top 2-round pick for you guys?
I can start. Kayshon Boutte has to get day 2 capital, whether that's the 3rd round. I think that would bump him up just a tiny bit for me, and then I would probably take him here at 212 over LaPorta. Tucker, though, if he's drafted in the top half of the 3rd round and specifically to a team that actually fits his skill set, I probably would bump him up a little bit more. I'm coming around on Sean Tucker, and I've been his biggest hater. So, but yeah, those are the main 2 that I'd bump up a little bit.
I don't know, man. If Boutte goes in day 2, then yeah, I'll be back in. But is he gonna go day 2? The dumbass wasn't ready for his pro day. Like Boutte is one of these guys that like he's getting propped up by people, but it's like, hey, he hasn't shown us that he's been ready to go. Tucker's the interesting one. We did a big old profile, me and Jay Stein, who writes for Football Guys, today. We were looking at it from his analytical breakdown, and he checks boxes analytically. But they're kind of like no context boxes. So we were diving into today. Like he does check a little bit of boxes, but then like he has his big games against like Grambling State or or Wagner, whoever they played. And then against tougher opponents, he doesn't get the carries, but he does okay, but he doesn't get the volume, or he doesn't produce, or he's a good receiver. So we had an argument today on the show, like, oh, Jay talked about him being a very good receiving profile, and I'm like, well, if you watch those games though, he's not a receiver. He's schemed just out, like he schemed out screens. I never really saw Tucker run a route. Like I've seen him. And even he's not very elusive. So when you're looking at PFF grades, he doesn't hit the elusive marks either. So like Tucker's he'd have to get in the 3rd round for me, like, or higher. Like even in the 4th, I know people are higher on that. Like I'm staying away in terms of that. Now, if you're in the 3rd and Tucker's still there, I don't mind you taking a shot on it. I mean, but he was going to the first 6 picks in early February. So like that is kind of where you better hope, if you're taking him that early, that he's going to be there. Roshan's another one that's on the board still. I don't know what to think of him. I think that he's a bruiser, kind of like Lindale White-ish, like that guy that what is he going to look like at the next level? Tillman, he's whatever. Tillman's for me is like, he's a 3rd round guy.
Yeah, but that speaks to the depth and value of this class that, if you can get those early 3rd round picks, look to do that right now. But Sean Tucker should have transferred USC last year. That's my 2 cents. But
yeah, well, it's gonna help. What's his face from South? Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah, I mean, that's the blueprint, right? We're a college football show, remember?
That's right.
Oh,
All right.
that's right.
Are we playing our games? Let's play our games. And this week we are once again picking XFL games. First one, Vegas Vipers at Seattle Sea Dragons. Kevin, where are you going?
Sea Dragons.
Jeff.
Kevin's very good at this, and I'm going to go with Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to take Las Vegas because I'm just going to pick opposite actually, because I'm not going to win anyway. San Antonio at DC. Yeah, 100%. San Antonio at DC. Jeff, where are you going?
DC. I'm going to go DC.
All right. Kevin, you go next.
DC.
All right, then I'll take San Antonio. Sorry, I needed you to pick so I could go opposite of you. Houston at Arlington. I'm first. Can't be first. I'm going to take Arlington. Kevin.
Give me Houston.
Jeff.
Houston.
Committing to this bit. St. Louis at Orlando. Jeff, you first.
St. Louis, I guess. I think our show motto is never pick Orlando, so St. Louis.
Yeah, and because I know that, I'm picking Orlando this week and hoping for a massive upset. Kevin, where you go?
Give me the Battlehawks.
Yeah, that makes sense. That'll do it for the Sportsbook Rundown. I'm going to lose again.
So we'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Kevin Coleman.
I'm Jeff Bell.
And I'm Christian Williams, and you just watched the Football Guys College Football Show.